Welcome grade 10s. Welcome to our new section of work that we're going to look at. We have finished looking at cells, and now you need to take those cells and we need to take it up a gear. Okay, so today what we're going to look at is plant tissues. Okay, so what I want you to look at, you're going to hear a lot of new words. You're going to have almost a terminology overload. Okay, but what I want you to do is say we're going to look at certain kinds of plant tissues. I want you to take each plant tissue and we're going to look at it step by step by step. If we have a look at the board over here, you're going to see the first word that we're going to look at. That's going to be not too new for you because we started looking at it last week when we were looking at mitosis, and that is this word meristematic tissue. Now, when we look at a plant, right, what we're going to see is we need to differentiate between two types of tissue. One type of tissue is what we call embryonic tissue, and that tissue can make different cells, right? Can make different cells. I think Llewellyn 2 weeks ago with you did a section on what we call differentiation. Okay, here you'll see the word, all right, differentiate. And what they are, cells, the word that we often use is embryonic. Right, you're going to see I'm going to use the word embryonic. And what embryonic means is cells that have the ability to change and become different cells. Okay, and what we're going to call those then are permanent tissue. Now, if you have a look at the board at the moment, you're going to see all of these different words that you are really unfamiliar with. But don't worry, we're going to look at each of them step by step, right? And we're going to look at what the function and the structure and location of each of them are. Right, now, what I want you, I'm not going to go over this board. It's just for you to have a bit of an overview of the words that we are going to look at today. Okay, now, first of all, before we start, I'm only going to give you a minute because I want you to think carefully. We are looking at plant tissue. Question number one, what is a tissue? And number two, why is it important that cells don't look the same, that they are different? I'm giving you 1 minute, all right? 1 minute, and then I'm going to go over the answer with you. Okay, good luck. Quickly, 1 minute. All right, grade 10s, were you able to find the answer? All right, did you look in your textbooks or did you use your phones or something? Remember, you must be able to get a definition that you are able to understand. Okay, so what is a definition for tissue in life sciences? Now, I said to you, if you have a look how we've gone so far, what did we start off with? We started off with biochemistry. What were cells made of? Okay, then we looked at this concept of what is a cell and what does it need to do. Now, our next one is tissue. What is a tissue? A tissue is a group of cells. All right, sorry, here we go, of cells. So we are looking at not one cell, we are taking more than one cell. We are putting them together. It's a group of cells, but now here comes the important part, that have a special structure and function. What does that mean? I'm going to pull up this poor little plant over here that I quickly zipped out of my garden on the way here. All right, it's not a fantastic looking plant. But what I'm going to show you, this little plant needs to do a few things. And when it does a few things, the things that it needs to do, and I'm going to give you, I'm not going to tell you too much because I want to ask you that just now. When you think about a plant, it needs to do different things. So if it has to do different things, it must have structures that enable it to do different things. So what we need is cells to look different because they have to do a different function, which now answers our question number 2. Why do cells need to look different? And this links to this one over here. Why do cells need to look different? Because they have different functions. Think about your body, all right? Think about a plant. A plant has to perform certain functions, therefore it needs to have special things or special structures that enable those functions to take place. Okay, today you're going to, as I said to you, it's going to be a little bit of terminology overload. You're going to hear words that are quite difficult to pronounce and sometimes quite difficult to spell. So when I'm going to talk about them, all right, you need to listen. I'm going to say them, all right, how they should be said, and sometimes I'm going to say them to you how it might be easier for you to learn how to spell them. Okay, the words that we are going to learn are each of the different tissue types today. You're going to hear words meristematic, parenchyma, which we can, if you say parenchyma, might be easier for you to spell, epidermal, Sclerenchyma or Sclerenchyma, easier again for you if you're able to pronounce it. It might be easier for you to say. This is a difficult one. Sclerenchyma, Sclerenchyma. That's how we say it phonetically. Right, you're going to hear the word xylem, phloem, and Sclerenchyma or Sclerenchyma. All of these, the terms are actually the names that we give to the tissues. Okay, so what we're actually going to do is we're going to look at each of the different tissues that a plant is going to be made of. Now, I was going to give you the answer earlier, but I'm going to give you 1 minute again. On the board is going to be a picture of a plant. I want you to tell me, what must a plant be able to do? Okay, 1 minute. Here's the picture of the plant. What do you think? Next to the diagram, just think of what a plant must be able to do, able to grow, and be able to do its job well. Okay, your 1 minute starts now. So guys, how did you do? Did you look at a plant? Did you think about what it needs to be able to do? And let's come up with some of the functions. Okay, I'm going to see, these are the ones that I've come up with. I hope that you guys have as well. All right, some of them are a little bit more obvious than others, some not so obvious. Okay, the first one that I wanted you to have. A plant must be able to absorb water. All right, So we need to have cells that take in the water. What else should we have? Now you need to think, and that's going to become later on in the syllabus. You need to be able to take in water. What else must you be able to do? You need to look at my pink line. Where do you think the water goes? All the way to the top and out the leaf. So what does a plant need to do? It needs to transport. All right, so we're going to need certain kind of plant cells that are going to move things up and down the stem. Okay, you're going to see later we want water to move up and we need food to move down. Now, what am I talking about food? Yes. What do the leaves need to be able to do? They need to be able to photosynthesize. Okay, photosynthesis. Don't plants make food for us? Don't they release oxygen, all right, to have gas for us to be able to breathe? So what do we need next? On our leaves, what do a plant need to be able to do? A plant needs to be able to exchange gases. Carbon dioxide needs to come in, right, and oxygen needs to go out. What else needs to go out? Water. What else does a plant need to do? Right, over here, these go down and the top goes up. So what else does a plant need to do? A plant needs to grow, right? A plant needs to grow. So there needs to be tissues there that enables the plant to grow. Okay, so we've got absorb water, we've got transport, we've got photosynthesis, we've got gases exchange, we've got to grow. All right, what else does a plant need to do? Right, a plant needs to be able to reproduce. There we go, to make more of itself. So we're going to have a flower. Okay, that is what basically, so if I'm going to put up my plant for the last time, what are we going to do? If a plant needs to absorb water, and it needs to transport water, or it needs to grow, they are all different functions. Okay, so if they have a different function, they must then have a different structure. They must have a different structure. Now, the first tissue that I'm going to look at with you today is the basic one that we heard about last week, is this one called meristematic tissue. Now, guys, it is essential. You need to be able to link a picture, all right? It's very important that you have a picture in your head of the tissue. You cannot be studying from your book word after word after word. What I want you to put it into a table. I want you to have a picture on the one side, and I want you to have the following 3 headings every single time, right? I want to know, what does it look like? What does it do? And where is it found? Okay, what does it look like? What does it do? And where is it found? Now, last week, the reason why we're doing this one, I want you to have a look at this tissue. When we have a look, remember what we said tissue was a group of cells that look alike. All right, these cells are alike. So as soon as we get a group of cells together, we form what is called a tissue. Now have a look at how simple the cell is. What is the most prominent part of the cell? It's the nucleus. Because what does a nucleus do? Press the button there. It divides by mitosis. And when it divides by mitosis, all right, what is the most important part of mitosis? Is the division of the nucleus. So if I have a look at this tissue, this is my basic tissue. I'm going to find it in areas, now listen, where I need, look at it carefully, I'm going to put the function in for you, where I need growth. I need this tissue to be able to divide, to bring new cells in to grow. Okay, now if you can remember, if we go back and you revise last week, you would have seen the following words: an apical meristem and a lateral meristem. Apical means the top, right? And lateral means on the side. Now, lots of these terms, right, words are going to be a little bit foreign for you until we start looking at plants themselves. And we've got to put that plant tissue into, all right, a plant itself, to the plant organs. So if we're looking at structure, right, what would we say that the structure is? We would say that it's a regular cell, okay, regular cell, and all it has is a large nucleus. Right, because if it divides, does it need all of the other different organelles? No, it doesn't. If it's going to make new cells, if it's going to make the plant go upwards, apical, downwards to the root, or to the side, right, that is what's going to happen. The more cells we make, the taller we get, the more we go into the ground, and the wider we get. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, going to have a quick little break, right? Go and get something to drink or a little snacky, go and shake the body, get the blood flowing, and then we're going to be straight back and we're going to carry on with our permanent tissues. Welcome back, grade 10. So I hope you had just a little bit of a rest, shook up all the muscles and get all the blood flowing again. As I say to you, this is a bit of a difficult section sometimes to understand because all the different tissues and all the different terms can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming. Right, I now want you to look at the board. Now the first tissue we're going to look at, and you see I've said there that it's a permanent tissue. What does a permanent tissue mean? It means that it was a meristematic tissue, but a meristematic tissue changes, right? And it changes to give rise to a tissue that performs a particular function. Because what do tissues do? They perform a particular function. Now, without even looking at it, I want you to have a look. Now, remember, this is a plant cell. Now, if you have a look at this tissue, what do you notice over here? I want you to see these white things over there. Do you see all these white areas? And everything else has been squashed to the back. These are vacuoles. Nice, large vacuoles. And what does a vacuole do? A vacuole stores. A vacuole stores. What else can a vacuole do? A vacuole can also pack things in. Right, so when you have a look at this tissue, this is called parenchyma. Now this tissue, we notice, we're looking at it, and we see it's these large, big vacuoles. Right, now as I said to you, a vacuole stores things. What does a vacuole need to store? A vacuole needs to store food or water. Okay, so if we have a look at our table, what would the function be? One of the functions would be storage. Okay, but what we need to store, when I say we're looking at food, what do we need to store? Okay, have a look at the two things that I've brought along with me. Okay, now what you can actually do is, you can ask, if you've got microscopes at school, you can actually do a practical, right, looking at some of these tissues. This is a potato and this is a tomato, okay, potato and a tomato. What does a potato do? A potato is a plant. All right, and if I were to open it up, what am I going to do? I'm going to eat it. And what am I eating? I'm eating food. So what is a parenchyma cell? A parenchyma cell is a cell that stores something. So what am I eating here? I'm eating a parenchyma tissue because what is it stored with? It is stored with food, right? So the plant has made food from the leaves, photosynthesis. The food has gone down and it's here. That's why I eat it. That's why I eat the potato, because it's got stored food. If you guys want to have a look at class, take a little dissecting needle, scrape a little bit of the white, all right, the flesh of the potato, and put it on a microscope slide. Then then take a little bit of iodine and sprinkle it on. Can you see all the black over here? And you'll see the black in the photo. Very often, iodine, all right, is brown, but when it's got starch, it turns blue-black. So if you're able to then see, all right, all the different all the iodine, the starch will come up blue-black, and you'll be able to see the cells. You can do the same with a tomato. You just take off a little bit of the tomato skin and you get a little bit of flesh, and you just smear it over your microscope slide and you put it on your microscope, and you should see again these big round cells. But what's the difference between my potato and my tomato is when we looked at plastids, this is a leucoplast, a colorless, all right, plastid. What gives a tomato its color? A chromoplast. So what should you see inside a potato? But big red, all right, red little plastids that give it its color. So now when we go to our table, how would I describe it? Okay, I would say, have a look at the cell walls. It's got a thin cell wall, right, and it's got a very large vacuole. Okay, oopsie, that's going. Right, and we've got a very large vacuole. I'm pushing knobs over here, guys, so sorry if it comes up different colors, I apologize. Okay, and it's got a large vacuole. What does it need to do? Let's go. It needs to store things. What organelle in a cell stores things? The vacuole. So if I need to store something, then what will I have? A nice big vacuole. Okay, its function, it's storage, it stores things, it packs things. It's the cell that we see the most of. You know, if you've ever ordered something and you want to protect it, it's the bubble wrap that you wrap around it. Okay, so where would I find it? Where would my location be? It's going to be found everywhere in the plant, right? It's going to be found in the roots, it's going to be found in the stems, and it's going to be found in the leaves. It's the most common tissue that you are going to find in a plant cell. Okay, it's going to fill all the gaps, it's going to store water. What does a plant need? If I look at my little plant, how does it stand upright? Right, it's going to use the cells, the turgidness of the cells to press against to be able to stand upright. Okay, let's go on to our next slide. Okay, this is a lovely one to do in class. For those of you who want to do a practical, it's so nice and easy. All you do is you get a little bit of an onion. Okay, an onion, and you peel the onion and you dot it a little bit with iodine, and you see these beautiful, right, characteristic cells. Now what do you see here? Very simple cells as well. Here I see the nucleus. Now have a look. If I look at my plant, I need to cover it. The plant, as well as you, has got an inside and it's got an outside, right? We have an inside and an outside. So what protects your outside? Your skin. What is another name for your skin? Your epidermis, right? So plants, they've got things on the inside, so they need to have special cells, tissues that protect them on the outside. Have a look at the color. They are not green, they are colorless, so they do not photosynthesize. Also look at each other. The walls are nice and thin. Can you see? The walls are thin. And what do? They fit against each other perfectly. It would be a bit of but it wouldn't be very good if my skin only covered certain parts and not others. So what must an epidermis do? The cells must fit exactly, all right, against each other so that I've got this protection. So if we have a look here, what would we then say? Okay, the structure of the cell, again, we're going to use the word regular shape. And if you will notice, did I say to you, can you see a vacuole? Did you see white? No. Notice all of this pink. What is all of this pink? That is cytoplasm, right? So do we actually see a big vacuole? No. Because is it there for storage? No. Why do I need a big vacuole if I'm not storing something? I want something that is going to protect and to cover. Okay, so it's a simple regular shape. Have a look at the cell walls and you'll notice, have you started noticing I'm saying to you, look at the cell walls? Because we can change the cell walls if we need to have a little bit of a different function. Okay, thin cell wall, right, and they fit like a mosaic. There's the word we're going to use. They fit together like a mosaic. We don't want to have any spaces. Everything must be covered. So what is their function? Let's go back, as I said to you, covering and protection. So they cover the plant and they protect it. The location, where am I going to find it? The location, a plant is going to need an epidermis from the root all the way to the leaf. Okay, so where am I going to see it? I'm going to find it on the outside of plant organs. Okay, so that's my root, my stem, and my leaf. So if I have a look at my plant over here, all right, I'm going to find it's going to be different structures depending on what I needed. Here's my root, right? Here is my stem, here is my leaf, and if I want to protect it some more, I put like a wax coating on it called a cuticle, all right, to stop water from going out of a plant and also to add extra protection. Okay, now you need to think a little bit, all right. An epidermis needs to cover and it needs to protect, but, all right, there is a but. Now, if you have a look at if you have a look at the plant, well, the question I'm going to ask you here is, can you think what the epidermis needs to do other than to protect and cover? I want you to have a look at this plant. I want you to look at it and I want you to think. An epidermis is on the outside. A plant needs to do two things. Number one, have a look here. Look at the root. Remember, go back to the functions. What does my root need to be able to do? My root needs to be able to absorb water. Right? So what do I need to do? I need to have a special cell, right? A special cell that can absorb water. Now this is called a root hair, guys. All right, this is called a root hair. Now look what I've done. This is my normal epidermal cell. Then look what I do. I add this long extension. What does the long extension do? All right, it increases surface area. What does that mean? Look at this. I'm going to change the colors here. All right, let's have a look here. Look at this area over here in blue. What can all of this do? It can absorb water. If I put this little cell over here next to it, what can the surface do? Only absorb water here. But if I do this and I add a long portion onto it, can't I absorb more water? Definitely. Okay, so I change it a bit. I change it. So I take my root, and what do? All right, I add a little extra to it. So I still have a covering function, but I've got an added responsibility. And my added responsibility is to do what? To absorb water. So I add a little extension onto it, and I can absorb more water. Okay, now I need to do one more thing. Have a look over here. Let me quickly show you. Sorry, that's what we'll look at if you look underneath the microscope. Have a look. There we go. What do? I add an extension and I can absorb more water. So it's like a car with just an extra added feature. Have a look at the next diagram. Okay. A plant, if we go back to our structure that we looked at earlier, what must a plant be able to do? A plant must be able to bring gases in and gases out. How do I do it? I breathe it in and I breathe it out. I don't see any lungs here in this plant. So a plant needs to be able to do it differently. Now, when we look at leaves, you guys are going to look at it in much greater detail. But if I look at a leaf underneath a microscope, and those of you who want to do a practical, what you can do is you take a leaf and you put a little bit of nail varnish, clear nail varnish, underneath the leaf, and then you pull it off and you look at it under microscope, and what you are going to see are these funny shaped cells. All right? And these funny shaped cells, the reason why they are such a funny shape, if you can have a look over here, is that they can open and close. And we call these stomata. Now, what a stomata is the following. This is called, all right, a guard cell. And if you have a look at it, it is kidney shaped. Let me quickly try it over there. Oopsie daisy. Okay, it's kidney shaped. This is called, an opening is called the stoma. So the cell plus the opening, we use the word stomata. Now what can the stomata do? And we're going to do this later. A stomata, imagine a kidney bean shape. If we change the amount of water that's in the cell, we can, if it's full of water, we can open, and if it's not full of water, we can close. So it's like my mouth. When it's open, I can breathe in gases, all right, or I can take gases out. When it's closed, then I don't do anything. Okay, so what does a plant need to do? How does it get those gases in? It needs to have an opening that needs to be able, well, a cell that can either open or close. All right, if it's open, it brings oxygen and carbon dioxide in or out, called gaseous exchange. Okay, I'm sure you've had enough of all these long terms. We're going to have a quick little break, and then we're going to be back to the rest of the cells. Quick break. See you just now. Welcome back, grade 10s. We're going to carry on because we've still got lots of work that we have to cover. All right, now here I am with my plants again. Okay, now the next set of tissues that we're going to look at are our strengthening tissues. What must the plant be able to do? It must be able to stand upright, all right? And it must be able, look at these flowers, all right? And look at these leaves. They are, even though I picked them a while ago, they are still, the plant is still upright. It is standing strong. It's not drooping. It's not hanging on the ground. Why? A plant needs to be upright so it can get maximum amounts of sunlight for the leaves, and the flowers are nice advertisements, right, for any kind of pollinator. When we're going to look at strengthening tissue, if you're going to have a look at the board now, we are going to play around with the cell wall. Okay? I kept on saying to you when we did our previous ones that the cell wall was thin. Now, how do we do that? The cell wall, all right, is usually, sorry, oopsie daisy, let's go back to the pens. A cell wall, all right, is made up of a hard substance called lignin or pectin. Okay? And this is hard, right? It's non-living and it is hard. It's also made up of cellulose. Now, all of these things are they're hard. So if we make the cell wall thicker, we make it harder, if I can use that term. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at two tissues. One is Sclerenchyma and the other one is Sclerenchyma. The one in front of me here is called Sclerenchyma. Now, if you will notice, I'm going to show you this pink diagram over here. Here is the cell. Okay, let me change the color so you can see it a bit better. Here is the cell. Now, look at these pink things. You would think that they, right, are spaces in between the cells. They are not. What they are is, we've taken the corners. Look at the black at the top here. We've taken a cell. Let me show you here, cell over here. And what I've done is I've taken a hardened substance and I've made the corners harder. Now, because I've made the corners harder, I've made the cell a little bit stronger. Okay? I've made the cell a little bit stronger. So what we have now is a cell that is stronger than a parenchyma cell or another cell. Now, if I look at the structure, I want you to see here, it is the cell wall, we say here, the cell wall is strengthened. Now I'm going to, okay, strengthened in the corners. Okay, corners. Now, if you can remember, a corner starts with a C. What does Sclerenchyma start with? Sclerenchyma starts with a C. So if you can remember, Sclerenchyma, corners, strengthened. What is the function? What did we say the function of the tissue was? It was to strengthen the plant, to hold flowers, okay, to keep the flowers upright, to keep leaves upright. So you know what we do when we have a plant, we have an epidermis, okay, so we have an epidermis on the outside, and right underneath the epidermis, what do? I put this tissue. So I've got covering protection on the outside, and what have I got just underneath? I've got this slightly strengthened tissue that gives the strength to the plant, all right? So what does it do? If I find it in my leaf here and in my branch, it keeps my plant upright. What does it do? It holds out my leaf so that the sunlight can come onto the top of the leaf so that I can photosynthesize. Sclerenchyma. What is its location? We're going to see it's going to be, now listen carefully, that's the next interesting one, the location. Would I need to have Sclerenchyma in my roots? No. Because where is a root? A root is underneath the ground. A root is underneath the ground. So where would I find it? In stems and leaves. Why not in roots? Because a root is underneath the ground and the soil is going to keep it upright. Okay, so the roots underneath the ground, I don't need to have strengthening there because the ground is going to do it for me. I need my strengthening tissue above the ground. Okay, our next one, and this they are very confusing because they can look so similar to each other. The next one is called Sclerenchyma. Okay, Sclerenchyma. Now, if you have a look at this, I want you to have a look at the red. That hole, let me draw a simple cell. Let me see here. All right, there we go. I thicken the whole cell wall, all of this. So instead of just doing the corners, what do? I take the cell wall and I make the whole, not just corners, the whole cell wall is thick, thick, thick. That actually, what can sometimes happen, and it's these cells at the bottom over here, these stone cells, okay? These stone cells, they actually, the cell wall takes over the cell completely, that there's no cell membrane. All right, so not cell membrane, there's no cytoplasm, there's no vacuole, it's dead. You'll see over here, it's a little bit of cytoplasm mostly, but all those dots, that's the cell wall. Now, you guys, I'm sure you actually have eaten it before. If you have a guava, all right, if you have a guava, and you can feel that it is quite rough, or an apricot, that's it. All these cells make up the shell of a nut. They're very, very hard, all right? So they have a protection. You will see as well, this is a celery stick, all right? For those of you who like celery, I hate celery, all right? Again, you'll see that sometimes it comes in little clumps, or sometimes Sclerenchyma is in fibers. If I break my celery, I know you can't see it too much, and those of you, can you see these strings? All right, if you go and have a look, go and take a piece of celery and break it. These little strings that come out there are Sclerenchyma. You can see they are strips. They're very tight. All right, they're quite strong. So they come fibers. You'll see your flax and those kind of things that we make clothes from. Right, those are also hemp and those things. They are made of those strong fibers. Why? Because they are very strong. So we can put them together and we can make clothing, or we can strengthening the plant. Okay, so my Sclerenchyma, it's got walls that are thickened all the way. So structure, okay, cell walls, we can say evenly, all right, thickened. Okay, what is their function? Again, strengthening, all right, protects certain, maybe protects the fruit, right, like the nut does. What does that shell do? It protects the nut. Where would I find it? Location. Do I need it in the root? No. I'm going to find it again in stems. And you're going to hear a word called vascular bundles when you do plants. Right? You're going to see this term called a vascular bundle that needs protection. Right? And I'm going to find it in leaves. So again, what does it do? Either protects or it's going to strengthen my plant so that it is upright. Okay, now we're going to go to the last group of tissues, and they are called my transport tissues. What are they going to transport? Okay, oopsie daisy. We need to transport two things. We need to transport food and we need to transport water. Okay, now the first one that we're going to look at is called xylem. Now, when you think of xylem, and I wish I had one at home, but I didn't because I was rushing here, is I want you to think of a straw, all right? I want you to think of a straw. When I'm drinking, all right, what does a straw look like? It's thin, right, and it's hollow. Most important thing, it's hollow. So when I want to drink from my can, why do I use a straw? Because it's going to move all of the water upwards. Okay, and it's hollow because if I stick something in, then I'm going to be sucking, and no water or no cool drink is going to come through. Okay, so what do I need? The plant needs to get water. Here's the roots. Needs to go up from the roots all the way up to the top of the plant till it gets to the leaf. Right, so if I use a straw to suck up my cold drink, I can use the same principles of a straw, right, hollow and thin, to suck up water. Right, so what does the water do? It's going to travel all the way up my xylem. Okay, so when we look at the xylem, what do we notice? We're going to see these characteristic straw or like cells. Now that is one cell, believe it or not, all right? It's very different to the cell that you did in the beginning. This is one cell. This is a trachete. Look at the difference. This is a xylem vessel. This is a xylem trachete. What is the difference between the two? Look here. This is what we say. It's got a tapered end. All right? It's got a tapered end. So what this one, right, what we do is if you have a look over here, if it's a straw, what do? I can add one on top of the other like this. So if I've got a really long tree, what do? One straw on top of each other. I can build from all the bottom to the end. With the tapered end ones, what happens? I can just do it slightly. I don't need to have a very big plant. I can just move here. What are these little things, all right, on the side? Well, if you get on a lift and it says bottom floor or top floor only, that's not going to help, all right? What does the plant need to do? Plant needs to take water up, but what happens when it gets to branches on the side? The water needs to move out, go up. Water needs to move out, go up. Water needs to move out. So these little pits, all right, are going to ensure that our water, it's called translocation. You're going to do it when we look at a later segment, you're going to see that word. Our water needs to move out. Now, if you have a look at what it looks like here, this is what it looks like underneath a micrograph. Now, here's the hollow tube. Now, these walls are also strengthening because can you see these red rings? Those red rings are lignin, and lignin is hard. So not only is water going to travel up this hollow tube, but this hollow tube also can't collapse. It needs to be, imagine having a straw that one sip and the whole straw, and in the good old days we used to have paper straws. You'd sip it once and the whole paper straw would just crumple in and you'd throw your paper straw away. That's the same thing that you don't want to happen here. What do you want to happen? It must be kept open. So what do we do is we have, and you'll see sometimes has these particular shapes. The lignin doesn't get laid down right evenly. We get sometimes these spiraled shapes of the lignin, and it actually keeps it strengthened as well, right? And it also helps with the movement of water. This is a very important when we get to the structure. I'm going to write the basics down because I want to get to flow, but it's long, it's hollow, it's thin, there we go, hollow, It has pits. All right, and its function is to transport. TPT stands for transport, water and mineral salts. All right, and guys, location is in the roots, oopsie, pushing buttons, in the stems, and in the leaves. All right, and usually found in the middle. When we do plant organs, I'm going to show you a nice little experiment to do with your celery slip. Okay, last one is flow. Now, as I said earlier, we need to transport two things. Water, which we've just done through xylem, and phloem. What does phloem do? Right, phloem is going to transport food. Right, so if we look at our plant, here's my leaves at the top. What does my leaves make? Photosynthesis, and it's going to make food, right, which we usually call starch. And where must that food come? It must come downwards. So it's like having two different elevators. So the xylem is going to take water up to the leaves so that we can lose it out in transpiration. And the leaves make food during photosynthesis, and that food must come downwards. Now, let's have a look at how the phloem is slightly different to my xylem. Whereas my xylem was hollow, here we've got little bits of cytoplasm on the side, right? And the rest here is hollow. And what we've got are these little things called end plates. Now I want you to imagine something. The water we need to get upright. But the food, you can't have food go in a big blob, go, and it falls at the bottom. What do you want food to do? Those of you who like syrup, okay, when you pour the syrup, do you turn it around that it trickles? All right, that's what you want. You want it to slowly run down the tube, all right, and we've got these plates, right, to ensure that as the syrup goes through, right, it slowly just runs over the plate and runs downwards. Okay, right, so whereas we want water to move upwards, we want the starch, all this food, and remember it's not big drop, it's like in a syrup form. We want it to slowly move down. And when it comes to phloem, right, phloem also, unfortunately, not so unfortunately, phloem needs to have a little mycie, and it's called a companion cell. And that companion cell is a parenchyma cell. Okay, so guys, I know we haven't got much time left, but I want to just show you, and this is where the difficult part comes in. If you have a look, I'm just going to quickly show you some of the questions that we can answer. Here I've got a whole lot of plant tissues together, okay? And you now need to be able to decide which plant tissue is which. So have a look. The kind of questions I can answer, okay, I can kind of ask you are the following. All right, looking at that diagram, 3 tissues that can support. All right, 2 types of cells found in tissue 3. Which numbered tissue is found in the shells of nuts? Which of the numbered cells are dead at maturity? Which 2 of the numbered tissues have large storage vacuoles? All right, so if I go back to my diagram, 3 tissues that have a supporting. A supporting means they strengthen. Okay, they strengthen. So you must look at the tissues that can decide which are going to strengthen. I'm afraid that's all we have for today. Please, you must make sure that you take your examples. You make sure that you've got a picture in your head of the different tissues. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Have a wonderful day.